Hello there, Healed listeners. I'm excited to kick off the third season of this podcast. Season 3 will look a tad bit different. While I'm still going to be sharing other people's stories of being healed through natural alternatives, I'm also going to incorporate episodes that are simply meant to be encouraging and motivational to all listeners. In today's episode, I want to share with you what you can do if you're feeling stuck in your health. Stuck is a terrible feeling. So many of us feel like we've gotten no real solutions to our health issues. We have no answers. We're continuing to watch our health decline, and we're told to seek counseling or come in for a follow-up appointment at a later date. While we are all miserable, scared, and tired of being sick. The inspiration for this episode comes from something that I just went through recently with my mom. Let me tell you about it. This past Thanksgiving, my mom had a terrible migraine, which isn't really normal. She used to have migraines, but doesn't usually anymore. A couple of days later, she began to lose the feeling in her hands and feet. She complained that they were tingling. The tingling and numbness continued to worsen until one day she couldn't feel her feet enough to safely walk. She had complained to her primary care doctor of the tingling before Thanksgiving, but her health declined rapidly after Thanksgiving. Her doctor told her that she needed to see a neurologist and had been trying to get her a referral, but the appointment could not be made until this coming summer. Apparently, there's a shortage of neurologists at the moment. So we were told to take her to the emergency room. We went to the emergency room, saw a great doctor. We received fantastic care. But what didn't go well was the diagnosis. She was told that she has cervical stenosis, which means that the bones in her neck have narrowed and are pressing on her spinal cord in this direction. If you're on YouTube, you can see me. Apparently, when your spinal cord gets damaged, there's not any repairing it. Her options were surgery now or surgery later, basically. The surgery for that is extremely dangerous and can leave you paralyzed. But they said if she didn't have the surgery, she would eventually become paralyzed anyway. The surgery could be successful, meaning she wouldn't get any better, but she wouldn't get any worse. Or the surgery could damage a ligament in her neck that holds your neck up, and she could be left looking at the ground for the rest of her life. So not any options that were hopeful or encouraging. And my family, all of us, immediately said, okay, what other options are there? This surgery did not sound like a place we wanted to go. This diagnosis sounded like she was stuck, trapped in a body that couldn't get well, which may be how you feel right now. Did you know that the National Health Council estimates that 133 million Americans have an incurable ongoing chronic illness? This number represents more than 40% of the population, so almost half. And this number is expected to grow to 157 million, with 81 million people having multiple conditions. The problem with these statistics is that they do not align with what God's intention for our lives is. For example, Scripture says in John 10:10, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. These scriptures do not sound like what most of us are experiencing in our real lives. So we're forced to choose which one we're going to believe. Are we going to believe we can walk out our purpose and calling in life with God? Or are we going to believe that we are destined to live a life of illness and hopelessness? So when we received Mom's diagnosis, I was immediately reminded of the Bible story about the parting of the Red Sea. The Israelites, God's chosen people, had rebelled and were in slavery to Pharaoh, who sees them as a threat and attempts to destroy them. Israel cries out for help, and God sends Moses, who will eventually defeat Pharaoh. You probably know the story. God sends 10 plagues upon the Egyptians, and Pharaoh lets the Israelites go. But then he changes his mind and sends his army out to chase them. In Exodus 14, we read that the Lord told Moses to have the Israelites camp by the sea. The Lord told them to walk into a situation with seemingly no way out. When the Egyptians approached, they were very confused. They were stuck with no options, the Israelites were. Moses even questioned God and asked him why he had taken them into the wilderness just to die. He asked them if there were not enough graves available in Egypt. This may be the part of the story that you can relate to the most. You may be stuck in your health and feel like God has left you or led you into a situation where you're going to die. I want to encourage you here to listen carefully to the end of the story. God has not left you, but He does have something for you to do. When the Israelites cry out to God over their situation at the Red Sea, God asks them why they're crying out to Him. He says, "Go forward." That is when Moses lifts up his rod, stretches it over the sea, and divides it. The Israelites cross the sea, the Egyptians follow them, and get swallowed up. I love the advice Moses gave the people in Exodus 14:13 and 14. He tells them, "Do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which He will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace." Sometimes when we read our Bible, it's easy to get caught up in the stories as if they're fictional, but they are not. There's evidence that this story really took place. It's real. God defeated their enemy for them, and He can defeat yours too. But what do we have to do? We have to go forward. Forward in the direction God sets us in. Not forward in our own strength, not forward in our medicine strength, not forward in our doctor's strength. Forward in God's path. Okay, back to my mom's story. So when I was reminded of the Red Sea Bible story, I thought, okay, God, what path have you already set us on? What help have you already provided for this situation that I missed? God goes before us, you know. He says He prepares a place for us. So I knew that wherever we were going, God was already there. I remembered a podcast interview that I recorded recently with Tara Krager. She was hit by a car and had structural damage to her back. If you haven't checked that episode out, you should go listen. It's pretty amazing. She was able to find healing through a chiropractor who worked gently on her back and through nutrition. Then I remembered that someone recently had highly recommended a chiropractor to me, one in West Knoxville, who I did not intend on going to at the time. It was too far away. But I knew that was it. God had already provided the answers before we had the questions. And that's what we did. We moved forward in faith, not in fear. We canceled the surgeon appointment and scheduled with the chiropractor. I think it was our third appointment there, and we stopped to eat at Cracker Barrel to have dinner. It was right before Christmas, and a trip to West Knoxville took half the night. As we waited on our table, Mom started to walk through the store and browse, without me, without a walker, without a cane. I literally felt like time stopped. I stood there and I watched her, and I saw her walking again on her own, and tears came to my eyes because not being able to walk takes away your independence. It takes away your freedom. And we serve a God who makes a way for freedom. We serve a God of hope, a God who loves us enough to send His Son to die for us, a God who has good plans for our lives, a God we can trust. So I want to encourage you today, if you feel stuck in your health, stop and see what God has already provided. And when He brings it to your mind, trust it. Go forward. Do not be tied to what you think moving forward looks like. The Israelites would never have seen moving forward as walking through the sea. My mom would not have thought moving forward would have looked like finding healing through a chiropractor. In my own health journey, I would not have thought my healing was going to look like it did either. But we have to be willing to think out of the box. We don't think like God. Our minds and imaginations cannot comprehend what God can do.